We're live. Hello, everyone. Please welcome Marianne Jacobson today. Marianne, I'll let you introduce yourself in just a second, but I think I found you on Substack, and I just asked, like, hey, can we meet? Can we chat? And then we got to know each other a little bit, and I invited you on because you introduced me to a term that I had never really pieced together before, which we'll talk about today, but it's inflammation and stress. And you'll tell us all about that, but also an area that I'm trying to expand my information and understanding on is really like midlife care and how to support people and how that looks differently. So I'm excited to continue learning from you and from your writing and everything. So thank you so much for being here. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us like what you do for work, what you do for fun, and what decade of life you're in.
All right, so I'm Marianne Jacobson. I'm a dietitian by trade, but I've been writing uh, for most of my career life in the last 16 years and discovered writing when I worked in the corporate world. And so that's what I focus on now. And for the first 10 years when I was really writing, I wrote about child nutrition and feeding because I had kids. I had kids kind of later. So I was already starting midlife when I had my second, but I was so focused because I never worked with children and I like to research and write. And so I did that for 10 years, wrote some books and met a lot of great people. And then as I was getting older, towards my later 40s, I noticed just changes in how I felt and started doing a little bit of research and like thinking, hey, maybe I'll spend some time on midlife, focusing on hormones because I didn't know a lot about that. And I always like to learn new things. And once I started researching, I thought I could write quickly, but I just kept going deeper and deeper. I had more questions. And I still haven't finished the book that I am going to get done this year. Like it may not, I'm hoping to have it out at the 2027, but I don't know. After a while I knew like I'm just going to be focusing on this. Eventually it may not just be midlife. I think it's just aging. And I think midlife is that time where the effects of biological aging show up. And it's a great time to do something about it because, it's the beginning stages. And so instead of, our medical care, they wait till much later and it's a lot of medications, which are fine. But I just so intrigued. And I think there's so many gaps in the research. And so I'm just passionate about trying to get the information to women about what's missing because, there's a lot coming at them right now. So I do that. And obviously I like to work out. I like to run. I'm, been focusing on weight training for the last 6 years. But I still love cardio. I play tennis too. And, my oldest just went to college. So I'm doing
Congrats.
more. I know there's more for me. And so I'm trying to branch out more. This is a big year for me. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, congrats. Let us know when your book comes out so we can all celebrate with you.
I will.
You've written a few books before, right?
Yeah, I wrote Fearless Feeding with Jill Castle, a pediatric dietitian. And that's kind of like the Bible of feeding kids from high chair to high school. And then I
Cool.
wrote, a few others, a mindful eating for kids and a book for girls going through puberty, My Body Superpower, so they can learn, because a lot of girls have body image issues when their
Yeah.
body change. And when you have a poor body image, you're less likely to participate in healthier behaviors. And so it's all about looking at these changes in a positive light and
hmm
learning what your body needs. Um, so that was kind of my last book. And then I went from puberty to menopause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what decade of life are you in?
So I'm in my 50s. I'm
Okay.
56.
All
Yeah.
right. And what do we define as midlife? When does that start for folks?
If there's in the literature, I think the most common definition is 40 to 65.
40 to 65 is mid. Okay.
Now, it can give or take. You can even
Yeah.
have someone in their late 60s that, because part of it's what time of life, like I had kids later. I went through menopause later. I'm right now just in menopause, kind of most women it's 51, but it can vary. Um, So yeah, like it's just the middle years. It's not because my husband's always like, "You're past midlife," but it's those
No,
middle.
you're not.
There's a beginning, middle, and so yeah, like that's why I might not change the name, but it doesn't really matter because all the same things apply as you get older, which is kind
Yeah.
of cool. So it's never too late or early. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that because we really are in a reactive healthcare system, and we are primed for reactivity instead of prevention. And that's why I built everything I built is all about prevention and all the different ways to do that. And you're right, like more information than ever. I mean, look at just menopause alone. My take is just the amount of research that's come out and the 180s that have been done just in the past couple of years is amazing. And we
Mhm.
need other forces like yourself and people with a lot of presence or like a lot of followers, honestly, I guess, to just keep spreading
Mhm.
the word that like there is more information out here for us, and which leads to empowerment and things like that. But yeah, I think it's so critical to be able to empower folks on prevention versus reactivity because there is so much we can do. And you would agree, you said it's never too late. So you started weight training when you were about 50, you said.
Yeah, I actually have always done some type of,
You've
but it
always been
wasn't like a
active.
focus. I'd always drop it for like
Mm,
going for a run or so. Actually, when I was 18, I joined a gym and did like learn the weight training, and so I've always like my friend reminds me like you'd always go in the weight room. I'm like, but I just kind of did some quick stuff. So
right.
yeah, it was more of a like I'm focusing on this because I'm
Okay.
not naturally very strong. Um, I think some people that especially women, they start and they see that reward and they can lift more. For me, I'm not super strong. I mean, I'm strong, but it's not a natural thing.
It seems like you have a real passion for running too. So
Yeah,
you
I
only have
just
so
love
many
running.
hours in
It's
a
the hardest
day.
thing I do. Like, it's
Right.
so hard, but I run with friends and we get up early. It's usually 3 times a week, but I go twice usually. And it's just great because we catch up and everyone, if you have a problem, you can run it by them, and that's all everyone's asleep. It's like 5:30 in the morning, and so I value it more now. I used to go alone for runs more, but they really motivate me, and we kind of do a walk run too because I was like, I want to be able to run a long time, and I don't want to get injured. And run walk.
Yeah.
Jeff Galloway has a program, and so that we work in walks into our runs, and it's really great. Yeah.
Amazing. And you're doing 2 for 1 with the longevity pillars because you're getting social connection,
Hmm.
which is like, there's some people, everybody says something different, right? Like the number one thing for longevity is food. The number one thing for longevity is exercise. The number one thing for longevity is social connections. They're
Hmm.
all super, super important. And depending on which research you look at and how you manipulate it, you get to say one is more powerful than the other. And then you have the human factors and variables that
Hmm.
you can't control for, but I mean, it's true. We know that it's incredibly important. So that's very cool that you have that social component in there too.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
keeps you like if it's cold or rainy or you're not in the mood or whatever, and it keeps you like accountable and feeling in community. That's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. There's another term. Oh gosh, I
And
can't.
I'm the oldest one.
Oh, that's
So I'm like,
great.
yeah.
But there's another term you mentioned, and I'd love for you to just define it for everybody. What does biological aging mean?
So there's chronological, right? So there's your age. And
Yeah,
then, we all know this biological, like especially when people are a lot older. And when I used to work in hospitals, you'd see someone 75 that, looks really older. And then meet someone who's 89 and they look younger than, and it's not about looks. I think it's just the rate in which the negative effects of aging, there's
yeah,
positive effects of aging, but on our health. So there's different, and they've done studies, a Dunedin study, like they call it the pace of aging, and they measure, and the pace of aging based on biomarkers in this New Zealand population. That's really interesting. So it's going to be different for everybody.
yeah,
Uh, but I think there can be hidden sources of aging. Like for myself, I had an iron deficiency most of my 40s, and that can increase oxidative stress. And a lot of women, it's a huge problem, menstruating women, and they're not always diagnosed. And it's not something we think about. At least I wasn't thinking about very much. So I think, we kind of live in this world where, like, if you eat right and exercise and, you're going to be healthy forever. And I think we got to kind of open that up because there's, like you said, there's a social, it's a whole puzzle. And, you want to make sure like there's nothing that's missing, that, it's not just, you know, eat well and exercise. Does that
Right.
make
Yep. And I think you and I are both we're in the world of like, we're not in medicine 1.0, like, and
Mhm,
everyone's defining it differently because it's like really just like jargony and like a slang term kind of. I mean, I don't think it's like hard to find at this point, but like there's medicine 1.0, there's like nutrition 1.0, and like I'm really now 15 years into my career, it's like I'm really focused on the 2.0. So like eating right and exercising and sleeping and stress, like get a good handle on those, but then there's still a very real desire for putting the icing on the cake from people.
mhm,
Like, how are we going to make sure our environment like supports what we're doing? There's so many dietitians out there and so many other professionals really getting into the nitty-gritty. Like
mhm,
I developed PMDD, which I attributed to we got an RO water system. And even as a dietitian who works with clients and creates accountability and thinks about these things with them, was not replacing my minerals. And
mhm,
so I worked backwards to figure it out, and after 4 months of drinking the RO water, I was depleted enough to develop PMDD symptoms because
mhm.
once I corrected it, they went away.
Wow.
How crazy, right? So it's like there's things like that. You go to the doctor and you don't put that together, and they're like, "Well, I don't know, nothing's wrong. Your labs look fine and, da da da." So it's like that's the space that I think what you're really writing into and what you're working on, and like there are still like and a lot of people in the older generations will be like, "Well, uh, I did that and I was fine," or "I
Yeah.
did this and I was fine." It's like, well, a lot of people aren't okay with that anymore. And a lot of
Mhm,
people are like, "But I still have this symptom," or like, "I can't get into REM sleep," or "I have restless leg syndrome and the pills aren't working." Like, there's a lot of ways we can just go a little bit deeper and really do a little bit more 2.0 to think about these things.
mhm.
Does
Yeah.
that bring anything to mind for you? Like any examples?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just the type of person also that I wanna understand, like, what's going on.
Yeah.
And so, I think when you get a better understanding of whatever issue you're having, like, then you can look for solutions,
Yeah.
and I think we a lot of times we don't go deep enough. If you read, when you read stuff online, it's kind of surface, which is fine. Um, but really understanding, and that's what I think with midlife, like what's just happening with me, is like so much, everything's about hormones, but it's not just that. Like, and I just kind of like, I would just keep like, I'm just not satisfied with what the common, what everyone's saying. And it's not like you're never going to understand everything, right? Because the more you
Right.
know, kind of the less you know. But to
Right.
me, that's what I want to do with women, is just help them understand they can make the decision if they
Mhm.
understand, right? And
Yep.
understand their options. And then in the end, it's up to them. I don't want to just be like, do this, do that. Um, but yeah, and it's amazing, like the things that you learn about, like, what you
Mhm.
just said, that you didn't know. And you're like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
um, like with me with breathing, like I've, had anxiety for years and years and just always thought breathing. I hate when people say, take a deep breath, slow,
Right.
until uh, I did a meditation on Insight Timer. And I think it's Oliver, I forget. It's an anxiety meditation. And he has you deep breathe for 16 minutes. It's the first time I did it for that long. And afterwards, I felt so calm. And like, I've never felt that calm. And it was like, and then I just wanted to do that every day. And now deep breathing, slow breathing and there's a lot of promising research. The problem is there's not a lot of incentive to do that kind of research versus
Yeah.
the drug
You can't
research.
make any money off of it.
Yeah. And it's also like, when someone develops a drug, it's all lined out what they need to do for their studies. Right. And so they get the funding, do the studies, but we don't have that same requirement for other. And it's also hard to get the placebo, right? Because you do a
Mhm.
sham breathing, or same with like acupuncture, but the sham can, it's not the same as like giving a placebo pill that's sugar or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's just, we need better research and incentives to do some of this other research.
Yeah.
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 But
Absolutely. And there are a lot of good people out there doing it, but
yeah.
then we also need to get the research in front of people.
Hmm.
And again, that's not incentivized either. And people are, I'm sure you encountered this a lot in your career. It's like the answer to a lot of your problems is actually just eating real food, sleeping better, moving your body. There's all these studies being pumped through my algorithms about exercise being more effective than SSRIs at depression. And the
Hmm.
fact that there are a lot more side effects to SSRIs than were initially believed, right? So it's like, it's just very interesting. Like the things that are going to make you at least get that first level of feeling better or optimized or living better or living longer is those four basic things: stress management, sleep, food, and moving.
Yeah, for
And people
sure.
are like, well, I don't want to do that.
Well, that's a choice too, right?
Right, totally. Totally. But yeah, but we're supposed to have the answers. So like we just can do our best. But yeah, there's no money in the shockingly simple
Hmm.
reality of it all.
Yeah, and also like it's never one thing. I mean,
Right.
sometimes you find one thing, and so it's hard to boil down. That, oh, you got to look at this, and then you lose people, so that can be tough.
Right.
I
Right.
realize not everyone what I write is my cup of tea. They might want it simpler because I got this message one time or this comment that's like, why can't you just simplify? And I really do try because I do sometimes get off on tangents, but um, you know, I think the people that are attracted to me want to understand
Yeah.
and are okay with complexity, uh,
Mhm.
because so there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like we may not have been taught this in school, but like the common belief is like if you're for everybody, you're really just for nobody.
Yeah.
Like I wrote a whole thing that I haven't published all about why and how, and that I already know longevity is not for everybody. It is not a conversation people want to have. It's only appealing to folks who are already decently empowered, who have high agency over their life. Otherwise, it's completely irrelevant,
Mhm.
and that's okay. But one of the things I always remind myself is like, if this is right for you, and those are the type of people that I'm happy to support, are the ones who this does align with. There's so many things within the healthcare world. Like we definitely can't be for everybody. You just have to be true to yourself, and the people that resonate with it are the ones that will benefit.
Yeah, and then it's also looking at, there's this ideal and maybe you have all this information, but you decide, you know what, I'm going to focus on these things because
Hmm.
I only have so much time. And, I think of that with exercise because as you get older, there's like, you need to do everything, like mobility,
Yeah.
strength.
Right.
And, I totally get it if someone's really happy with their routine and yeah, they could do more, but they're going to stick, so part of it's just making those decisions about, what's best for you.
Right.
Because if it does start making you crazy, then you gotta consider that too, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's tough, and I think it can get overwhelming, and that's where it's like really helpful to see, to work with somebody or even just a loved one and figure out like what can I actually do and be agile and experiment and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the term you introduced me to is Inflastress. So, if I'm saying that the way that you like to say it. So tell me about this and its origins and what it means for you and
Yeah, so it started, my readers know I talk a lot about nitric oxide which is a very important gas signaling molecule in our body that one of its main function, but it does a lot of things, is it dilates blood vessels, both small and big, and this is very important, blood flow, right? To get oxygen, to get nutrients. And so I read this article and it just sent me down all this research. And soon I was finding out, well, estrogen and progesterone, our sex hormones, also increase nitric oxide. I thought that's really interesting. And, I was learning that it declines by half from your 20s to your 40s.
Hmm.
And I was like, but I'm always like, why? Like, instead of, oh, yeah, it just declines, I'm like, why? And I started doing more research. And then I found, well, inflammation will cause it, low grade inflammation that happens with aging, and menopause can increase it. So it's like, okay, inflammation, and then, but also oxidative stress when there's more free radicals and antioxidants also decreases nitric oxide because it scavenges it and it turns it into reactive nitrogen species, RNS, which is a free radical. And so I'm like, okay, so oxidative stress and inflammation. Then I read this one article. I'm like, well, whenever you have inflammation, it says you're going to have oxidative stress. And when you have oxidative stress, you're going to have inflammation. So they go together. They're kind of like that annoying couple you always see together. And I started realizing that, you know, just Inflastress was kind of my, you know, instead of just saying inflammation. Inflammation's big right now, right? And
Hmm.
oxidative stress people talk about, but not quite as much. So that was like, okay, this is partly why nitric oxide decreases with age and then menopause even more.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, why does it? Why does Inflastress go up? Then that's the whole lifestyle. There's all these different factors that can increase Inflastress. Like I said, iron deficiency increases oxidative
Hmm.
stress. That's something we don't think about. A rising homocysteine. If you have a B12 deficiency, so there's a lot of these micronutrient deficiencies. With age, we don't absorb as much. Our gut changes, our stomach acid,
Hmm.
so there's all these kind of hidden sources of inflastress that decreases nitric oxide, which is really important. Insulin resistance, it's our microvascular, right? The exchange. If we have damaged microvessels, we're going to increase insulin resistance. So, like, aging actually starts in our blood vessels. And women in particular
Hmm.
are at risk for microvascular dysfunction. And this shows up in pregnancy. So, like, women that have adverse pregnancy outcomes are more likely to have microvascular dysfunction. And we're really doing absolutely nothing to spot those women. We know this, like that, if you have this adverse pregnancy outcomes, there's increased risk. And a lot of those women also have high homocysteine, they have iron deficiency, and it's just really interesting. Like, this can happen. You could be very healthy and just on the back burner have these deficiencies that nobody's monitoring. So I have a biomarker guide. I, really recommend asking for these tests, doing them yourself if you can, find a really good doctor that will understand. But yeah, and of course, exercise, your diet, where your fat is stored is the most important. Like, visceral fat increases inflastress. So not total body fat. Like, that's something I think as we get older, we do have more body fat. But if we exercise, there'll be less of
Hmm.
visceral fat. And so it's all these different sources as we get older cause inflastress to increase. And that's, I talk about these lifestyle factors. Our breathing, this is something we don't think about. Our breathing gets weaker. Our diaphragm, that's another source. We have a higher respiratory rate, and this increases sympathetic tone, the fight or flight. That's another source. So, like, it's all these, like, hidden sources that we don't think about. And, if you go to the doctor and things aren't, maybe your blood pressure's a little up and some of your lipids, they'll right away say, oh, lose weight or diet and exercise. But these other things, that the micronutrient deficiencies, the breathing, which is really emerging research. And I think in 10 years, I really think the breathing research is it's going to be starting to work into our medical system because it's very compelling. Um, I think, so
Hmm.
that's a lot of the things I talk about are not what, you know, a lot of people are talking about in the space. So sometimes it can
Yeah.
be a little confusing.
Yeah, you're almost 3.0. I have someone coming on, she's a breathwork practitioner, and then I have someone else who I was talking with today actually, who is a breathwork practitioner, and I think I wouldn't have even heard of it if I didn't kinda land in these spaces where I encountered these people. I probably would be a little bit further down the line or probably would have ran into it on Substack somewhere, but, um Yeah, and you mentioned it to me when we met. It's,
Mhm.
I agree with you. I think it's gonna become much more prevalent. It may be the way nutrition came about, right? We didn't used to be important at all, and it wasn't until, like, 8, 10 years ago we could even bill insurance, so, um,
Yeah, well, I read
we'll
this article,
see.
I think super I'm sorry to interrupt,
No,
that
please.
oxygen is like a nutrient. So, like,
Yeah, we should treat
if
it
you
that
have
way.
trouble getting oxygen, if you have sleep disorder breathing, that's a huge one. Like, women like, some of these studies show, I mean, like 60% of every study's different, have some type of sleep disorder breathing post-menopause. And
Wow.
hormone therapy might be able to help, I but it's not really clear. And I think, only 1 out of 10 of them are being diagnosed because they always think of it as a man's but even men, like 80% have some type of sleep disorder breathing, so, like,
Yeah.
if the partner or husband's snoring, that y I would never normalize that, like and I it's not to I don't like to scare people, because if you count it, like my husband, had mild or moderate sleep apnea and finally got him in and they have these mouth devices, it doesn't have to be CPAP.
Mhm.
So I think, and there's a lot of different, there might be ways we can prevent it through strengthening our tongue, because a lot of times our tongue kind of falls back and that's blocks our airway. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, we have like what colonoscopies at 50 now, even younger, but we don't have sleep tests. Like, why aren't we screening everyone at 50? Personally,
Yeah. So
it's
true.
yeah, like it's just something that's so common and there's many misconceptions that it's just this one type of person, like a really big man that,
Right.
um, and yeah. So,
I had that exact conversation with a new client yesterday. We were talking about sleep, and she was like, "Well, it's not great." And it's actually worse than she kind of prefaced. And one of the reasons why is her husband snores. And she was like, "But he doesn't have sleep apnea. It's fine." And I was like, "Snoring, I know more progressive practitioners and dentists and stuff like that are like, no, snoring's not normal. Like what you just said, we should not be normalizing snoring." Um, and, there's a billboard in my area, and I can't remember exactly what it says, which is kinda funny because I wanna say how simple it was. It stuck with me, but it basically was like, "Snoring is never normal."
mhm,
It was very simple, and I was like, "Okay," and then I remember, like, looking into it, like, a couple of years ago, like, "Oh, yeah, like, I don't need to be a sleep specialist, but I can at least verify with my clients and my community when it comes up, like, no, that's not normal, and what," and I was able to do what I could do, right? I was like, gave her the education on it. I was like, "I can send you an article, and then also, like, it's up to you if you wanna share this information with your husband, but no, snoring is never normal." I think that's
mhm,
very valuable because we've completely normalized that, and I
mhm.
love that you said, "Why aren't we getting a sleep test?" That's
Yeah,
really incredible.
and, even really just checking those oxygen levels and if they're falling, I mean, that's really what, your body responds to that, and that
Mhm,
increases inflastress and, like, it's a huge source. It's very linked to high blood pressure. So if
mhm.
someone's like can't do anything, their blood pressure goes up and they, definitely that I mean, if a doctor's not recommending that right away, getting tested,
Mhm.
I think
And
it's
I've been really trying to encourage with people as well. I had this happen with family members even, like a CPAP machine. It's like people don't even know that you can ask for alternatives. I
mhm,
mean, granted, it's made a ton of progress in the past few years, so maybe the general like, that's one where it's, like, hard to keep up, but, like you mentioned, the oral pieces or, like, a mouth
mhm,
guard or things like that can just change depending on the type of sleep apnea, but the message for everyone is, like, ask questions. If
mhm,
you're not wearing your CPAP because it's uncomfortable, you should dig and explore and poke and ask until you find a suitable solution. And what some people I've heard firsthand from, they're actually getting better support from their dentist.
yeah,
Like
I
a dentist that's qualified to do this stuff, which maybe all of them are, I really don't know, but they're getting better support there and getting a fix.
yeah, they'll do like there's a sleep dentist. You want to get someone certified and
Yeah.
they'll like look and like do these tests to find out where the problem is and then they make one that fits you because you can get stuff online that are just general but you don't you want to go to a specialist and get it fitted, and then you keep, changing it until it's the right, and then they redo the sleep
Mhm.
test to see if it's working. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that's a great option. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, and, the sleep tests can be pretty, a little invasive, but they are covered by insurance, and if one bad night's sleep to correct the next couple decades of your sleep and breathing, I think is obviously it's a no-brainer. So, but again, you have to get in that preventative, proactive mindset and do
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, I know. It's really important, and, women This what I've read is even mild sleep apnea in women in particular, there's no mild, like, it's just as bad as a moderate or, in a man. So, like, even if you're told it's mild, like, that's not not
It
good.
doesn't mean much.
Yeah. And so, it's still worth it to, look at different ways. There's really interesting stuff. I think some of these products are so cool. There's a straw you can use. It's called Remastered. I think the company is Remastered Sleep, and it's the Remplenish straw, and I use it because I even, like, notice every once in a while I, like, snort, and but when I use this straw, it strengthens your tongue, and would just use it with water when you're drinking at home.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Really cool. Yeah, and they're doing a study right now, sleep apnea, to see, maybe that's part of when we get to midlife, we have to start strengthening our tongue and our swallowing, our airway muscles, and,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that's really cool.
Is
These
this might be, like, way out there. Have we as a species struggled with this for many generations, or is this a newer problem related to our modern life? And if so, or is it because as a species we've also just stopped evolving?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of different things. Like,
Yeah.
it can, especially in men, it can be weight gain and the size of
Oh,
our,
yeah, yeah.
it
That's the
can
people
be
that think of when
chewing.
they think of sleep apnea. Yeah.
Yeah, like chewing. In the book Breathe, he talks about, our diet and different things. Sometimes it's just anatomy, or like people are more prone if they have allergies, the stuffy nose, and they're at a much higher risk. So there's great maybe it's treating your allergies that's the answer,
Right.
as
Right.
there's therapy, like, my daughter has bad allergies, and she's a singer, and we went to a ENT, and I didn't even know about this, that you can do this, under the tongue, immunotherapy. She's doing that, and her allergies are almost gone. Like,
Wow. You
used to
said
be just the
amino?
shots, you had to go get the shots, but now they have it, uh and it's like it costs money, but it's, like, well worth it if it's gonna prevent for her singing voice, but also future, like, so it's really like, what is the source? If you do have some kind of sleep disorder breathing, find out why, and hopefully find there's some good doctors. There's one guy on YouTube, but I forget his name, but he goes through all the different things it can be. So it could be in the end, you don't, if you treat the cause, and there
Mhm.
are some new treatments I don't really know a lot about. There's some surgeries and stuff, but yeah. So just, and I think the reason that we don't really deal with these things is because we live in a very specialized society, and, you have your cardiologist over here studying the heart, you have, your ENT looking, just at this one part, and not realizing that the rest of the body is connected. And so, if you're a cardiologist, you really have to know about breathing because,
Mhm.
or these micronutrient deficiencies, like iron is something so many women go, heart palpitations, they just have iron deficiency, and, like,
Mhm.
so, I don't know, like, they're very smart people that know their specialty, and you need that, but we're not really, everyone has to stay in their lane, but I think, it's important to find out all these other, how the body's totally connected, and, learn about these areas. You don't have to be a specialist, of course, but we can all learn about how the body works and what affects, you know, I don't know. I just think we're too specialized now. And if you've ever had someone in the hospital, oh, the specialist is coming. You're like, well, who's like bringing it all together for your sick.
Nobody.
Yeah, like, so I don't know. I think and nobody wants to take like full responsibility. I don't know. So I think, with midlife, I just research it all. And this book that's why it's so hard to write, because I want to, explain everything that's happening. And then, if someone has an issue in a certain area, then they can go see a specialist or someone that,
Right.
but just trying to bring it all together. And that's what the Inflastress is really about. It's like this, I call it the One Health principle. And I think it's a big overarching principle for, biological aging, and hormonal changes, that, when inflastress goes up, nitric oxide goes down. And, it's kind of like a seesaw. And,
Mhm.
but there's different reasons for it, instead of, everyone needs to go on hormone therapy. Yeah, that can be helpful, but that's one little tool, and
Mhm.
that's my worry right now is that I think women think, oh, I'm on hormone therapy. I don't have to worry about, that's not, you're not getting your hormones back. It's not, you're still biologically aging. And, women don't have to go on hormone therapy either. So I just think it's a much bigger story. And, you know,
Yeah, it always is. I mean, it's
hmm
just really reinforces the need for individualized care. It also really, we are so siloed. We treat people as just parts. It doesn't
hmm
matter if you're in the hospital, you're in the outpatient, whenever you're encountering practitioners and physicians, like, the cardiologist does not it's like the cardiologist has to sign off so you can have a surgery for something else, right? But, like,
hmm
that's the only crossover. Nobody's treating people like whole people, and
hmm
that's where I think, like, dietitians have such a superpower because we're able to say, like, "You're not binge eating because you love potato chips," right? Like, you are chronically sleep deprived. Let's go see the sleeping specialist. You have, either low grade depression or some other mental health condition. Let's get some mental health support. Let's fix these pieces. This is just a symptom of where this is showing up,
hmm
right? We'll also work from a nutrition standpoint to like make sure you're eating enough real food so that you're also not dealing with hunger and like wanting to binge on carbs because you got way too hungry. But it's like, it's never just about one thing. And that's where these like, I don't know if we want to call them like adjunct healthcare, right? Like dietitians and other types of therapies can pick up on those things. Sometimes I think better, quicker, and more effectively, and be able to help that patient really solve the whole problem versus just one little. It just take the example of blood pressure. Your blood pressure isn't because you're eating salt.
hmm
Like maybe it's genetic, maybe it's your lack of exercise, maybe it's your nervous system, maybe it's sleep apnea,
hmm
right? But like the doctor's not gonna, they're just gonna give you a blood pressure medication.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that made me think when you talk about like the mental health, to this, I can't believe in this day and age that we don't just check for some of these micronutrients like right away. Just iron. So iron and depression is there's strong relationship. They still haven't done a randomized control study, but like just recently helped a friend, and the daughter was having some issues. I'm like, check the iron because there were some signs that might be it. And sure enough, low iron. And that's not something I just don't understand why we're not. These are basic omega 3, like
Yeah.
just some of
So they don't
these
need an SSRI with side effects. They just needed
vitamin
iron.
D. Yeah, like, and I know what they'll say because there's no studies. Yeah, there's no studies. There's no, and then when they do the studies, they don't even take people that are deficient. They just give a supplement and I was really encouraged with a recent study. It's an abstract on vitamin D. And finally, in this study they did with heart attack survivors, and they gave one group, they gave them enough to raise their levels to 40 nanograms per deciliter. And
Okay.
so for some, it was 5,000 IU, for some 2,000, because everyone's different, right? And how much they need to get their blood levels. And, the other group was just standard care. And I think that's what we need to be doing. And they found that you know, the, the group that got the vitamin D up to 40 had half heart attack their risk was half less of having a second heart attack. You know, half as
Wow. And this
many.
is vitamin D, you said?
Yeah, and it's not even the results, it's just this is a kind of research, like getting the blood level instead of just giving everyone a supplement and they don't check levels. Like, I think in the VITAL trial, everyone got 2,000 IU, and they only at the beginning, they tested, like, half of them, and in the end, they tested, I don't know, like, an eighth of them. Like, they just tested a few to say, "Oh, yeah, levels go up," but the people weren't even necessarily deficient. So, like, what are we trying to do with these studies? And then, the results are null. They'll be like, "Oh, no one needs vitamin D." It's like, "What?" Like, I yeah, I don't know. They treat it like a drug, right? Just give everyone, it works with drugs because drugs aren't in you. Like, but you already have vitamin D. You get it from the sun. So it's just more complicated. And I don't know. It drives me
Mhm.
crazy. But this study gave me hope that, like, okay,
Mhm.
let's do studies like that. Because if we have a biomarker, that should be what we aim for, right? Not just,
Mhm.
giving a supplement, not knowing if, they even need it or, I don't know. So
What other, micronutrients are top on your radar right now?
I think one that's totally is being overlooked is iodine. And
Wow.
the reason I think iodine is a problem, well, when I look in studies, it's like, and they do urinary iodine under 100 is usually iodine deficiency. And like something like half, this one with menopausal women, half had levels under 100. That's not a small.
Wow.
And the reason is it's not in many foods. So it's in seafood, dairy, like milk and yogurt, iodized salt,
That's
um,
why we iodize salt in the food
seaweed. Yeah,
system
but no
100
one's
years ago,
using
right?
iodized salt anymore.
We're all using sea salt, right?
And a lot of people don't drink standard milk. They do these different milk beverages. Those don't have iodine. And I'm not saying you have to do. I have a little. I'm not about. I'm just about a little more than the RDA. I do think we need to do research to see if we need a little more because as we age, we don't uptake iron. It's less efficient. So I just use the Mary's every other day because I have a multi with some iodine. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think not this one study in 2015. It was the women with lower iodine had more hot flashes, and that's just one study. No follow up study. This is 11 years ago. I cannot find one follow up.
Wow.
You think that would be important,
Yeah, you would
If you
think.
eat out, like restaurants, they don't use iodized salt. So unless you're getting, having a lot of sushi, every day, most people aren't. Uh, you know, so I think it's a watch out one, and just as a simple way to just look at these foods, figure out if you're getting enough. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Any other micronutrients on your radar?
Choline is,
Okay.
I think, really important, especially when you go through menopause, because estrogen helps increase this enzyme that can help make choline.
Mhm.
And so when you have lower estrogen levels, um, and I think there's also some people need more choline, and I think we need to do a lot more research to figure out how to find people that need more choline.
Mhm.
It's a newer nutrient. It needs a lot more. Taking a supplement, they don't know if it can increase TMAO in the gut. Like, I don't know. It
Mhm.
needs a lot more attention for sure.
They started talking about choline in terms of pregnancy when I
Yeah.
was around the time I was having my first, and I did supplement. I don't think my prenatal had enough or something. It wasn't that long ago, but I feel like it was. But yeah, for like brain development and things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
do you do you think our food is has just less micronutrients in it than it used to? Is that why? Because a lot of people are like, and myself, I'm always trying to think critically and analyze, right? Like, there's a theory that the magnesium industry is just a branch of big pharma, right? It's like now it's telling everyone they need magnesium. And I think our emphasis on these trace minerals and these micronutrients and things like that have a lot more to do with the quality of the food we're ingesting. Even for folks like myself, for example, I eat almost entirely whole foods.
Mhm.
Like I really, we cook from scratch. It's a value my husband shares as well, which makes it easier for our family. We do eat out occasionally, like if we're at a Christmas party and everybody brings food, I don't scrutinize it, but
Mm.
like within our day to day, we eat pretty whole foods based. but there are still, like, I'm still susceptible to there's more nuance to it than that, but I'm just trying to, do you think that even just like the tomatoes we're eating, the potatoes, the beef, the eggs, that they're lower in micronutrients than they were 20, 30, 50 years ago?
I've read studies that say yes, and I've read studies to counteract that, and I haven't really looked into it lately. Um, I think you can look at what you're eating, though. We have enough data on the recent food. You can use a USDA database. And
Mhm.
I think you can figure out from what you're eating what you're going to be low in, but I think you're going to have to test no matter what certain nutrients because it's not just about your diet, it's about is it absorbed. So iron is one.
Yes, and your
Iron
gut
and
health.
diet are not super related. I mean, if you eat more meat, maybe, but so iron because when you have inflastress, iron isn't always absorbed. So that's
Right.
why when people get older, they have low grade inflammation or they have that's why heart failure, half of them have functional iron deficiency. So that means their
Mm.
ferritin will be normal. That's the storage iron, but their absorption, their percent uh, of iron that's absorbed is low, saturation. And so this happens a lot. And now they're checking it finally in heart failure. They're seeing that a lot of these people are, functional iron deficiency due to inflammation, but also it can increase your risk of heart failure too. I don't think they know for sure. Um,
Right.
so I think that I just don't believe that diet alone um, is going to meet your needs. And I don't think back in the day people were meeting their needs either. I think
Mhm.
um, I think you can figure it out and you
Mhm.
can just, vitamin D is not really even from food. We got mostly from the sun. So,
Right. We spend more time
B12
outside.
you have to absorb, and there's all these different steps. I had a friend that was low in B12 and she eats meat and she was totally shocked.
Mhm.
So I think checking your levels, um, magnesium for me, I think there's more than enough foods I think it's if you're having whole grains, beans, nuts, I figured out that I am getting more than enough magnesium. I don't really have to take it. And a
Mhm.
lot of people are taking so much and they may be getting a lot from their food. And then that's what, 800, 900 mil, some taking 1,000. And, so I think before we just take supplements, let's check our diet. Let's
Yep.
check our blood levels. We're never going to be 100% certain we're meeting everything perfectly. I think choline's an issue because I don't think we have a biomarker, and zinc and magnesium aren't great, even though, they only show if you're really super low.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I think it's, you can't, if I couldn't take any supplements, I would probably have to have seafood every day. You know, and then there's mercury. So
Right.
we can't purify our whole diet. We live in this modern life. So
Mhm.
Um, you just do the best you can, but
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting, yeah. Um, okay, cool. So, I wanna go back to a term you said, was it microvascular incidence?
microvascular dysfunction.
Dysfunction. What does that mean?
So, um, I wrote a whole article on this. Most of when we look
I
at
can link it in the
cardiovascular,
show notes so people
huh?
can see it. I can
Okay,
link it
yeah,
in the show notes, yeah.
the large arteries. That's where plaque builds up. That's what we think of, right? That's obstructive coronary artery disease, and that's what coronary calcium looks at, and that's more common in men. Women
Mhm,
get it too. It's the number one cause of death. It's important. But women are more likely, men get it too. And some scientists believe that actually the vascular dysfunction starts in the microvessels, not in the. But studies vary. They're still learning about the microvessels. The problem is you can't image them like you can,
mhm.
the big vessels. But we've known this for a while. The Yentl disease. I don't know if you remember, the Barbara Streisand Foundation for Heart Disease. Um, our microvascular, the blood flow decreases, and our large arteries secrete nitric oxide, and it's a vasodilator, so it helps increase blood flow. Our small blood vessels secrete nitric oxide too, but if nitric oxide isn't available, hydrogen peroxide is secreted, and that'll dilate them. The problem is that increases inflastress. So
Mm.
then you have increase, you know, and not even know it, maybe inflastress. And when you have more inflastress, your blood vessels become dysfunctional. It's called endothelial dysfunction. And
Mhm.
that's actually how cholesterol gets in. So people think just having high cholesterol automatically, goes into our blood vessels, but they have to become dysfunctional for it to really get in there. And then it gets oxidized, and that's, plaque builds up. But some women will just have they won't have anything in there. They go have chest pain, they go to the doctor, and they don't have obstructive, coronary artery disease. They're sent home, you're okay. But I think 60% of them or something like that have microvascular dysfunction, which is actually
Yeah.
very high risk for events. It's a quality of life. If you have it really severe, it's hard to exercise. There's a lot they need to learn about. There's no treatment. I mean, they can do the typical treatments, but a recent RCT just came out showing that high dose statin, um, beta blocker, and aspirin didn't improve outcomes. So
Mm.
I personally think prevention is key. I think you can, see from your labs, if we're better at checking these micro nutrient deficiencies. I think like iron. I
Mhm.
really think iron plays like, especially younger women get this more often. So, you know, if you're having symptoms and you're getting blown off, um, it could be microvascular dysfunction. And a recent survey showed that women with it's called INACA. It's non-obstructive coronary artery disease. INACA. I don't know if I'm getting that exactly right. Ischemia without a blockage.
Okay.
And they found that women had to go to only 10% got diagnosed at their first cardiologist visit, and it took them three. Most of them had to go to three cardiologists to get. So it's really not on the radar at
Yeah.
all. And I've, like popular cardiologists on social media, I'll be like, "Oh, you're going to write about that? Oh, good idea." But a woman cardiologist that's never talks about microvascular. It's all about atherosclerosis, which is the large arteries
Yeah.
plaque. Men get more often. Women get it too. I don't want to say they don't, and that men don't get the microvascular dysfunction, but it is something that's more common, and it's linked with those adverse pregnancy outcomes. And so really they should, hopefully we'll get to the day where, we're checking all that before you early in pregnancy or, find
Yeah.
out what's going on. Uh, so yeah, I think it's just something I'm really like when I've started reading this research, I'm like, why aren't we talking about this?
Yeah.
And then yeah,
What would be some symptoms of microvascular dysfunction?
you know, dizziness, faint chest pain, really bad fatigue.
Mm.
So a lot of these women that eventually get it, they, you know, have had symptoms for a while and all of a sudden, they have a hard time functioning. And that's when it's more severe.
Yeah.
Um, so
And
yeah,
how
I
is it
don't,
diagnosed? Imaging or
so I
symptoms?
think in the 2021 chest pain guidelines, they finally added that this should be, so they have like, you can do a PET scan, I think,
Okay.
but the gold standards is like this invasive testing that they can do. So
Okay.
it's just not, I think that's one of the reasons like, they have a long way to go to figure out how to, you know, diagnose it sooner. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions? So every state is a little bit different. There's some things in New York State where like uh, you're not allowed to do like the hair testing and like there's all kinds of different state regulations on when clients or when individuals can request their lab work. Like in some states, and I couldn't tell you which ones are which. I know Massachusetts is because it's a neighbor to me. You can go to a lab quest and request any lab, any biomarker you would like drawn, tested, blood, urine,
Mhm.
saliva, whatever. New York doesn't let you do that, but besides that, usually the barrier that most adults will voice is that my doctor told me they're not gonna do that, or my insurance company isn't gonna cover that. Do you have any tips for people who are like, "Something's not right. I haven't found anybody to help me dig deeper yet. I'm gonna figure this out myself." Like, how do people try to dig deeper on these micronutrients, getting these tested, getting these evaluated? What should folks be asking when their ferritin comes back normal? You hear this common complaint like that your labs are normal, you're fine, go home. But we are here to serve the people who hear that and know something's not right. So, what are your suggestions for people? What should they be asking? How should they be going about it? What are their options? And then specifically tell us about when ferritin comes back normal.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a biomarker guide and I kind of go through what I think the most basic tests and like
Okay.
what to ask if it's, you know, if it's low. Like if your B12 is borderline, they're like, oh, it's okay. You can ask for methylmalonic acid, and that's and definitely homocysteine. So
Mhm.
I kind of go through that, and if people subscribe, they get my biomarker guide.
Right.
But ferritin's an example. So basically, doctors will look at the lab range, and that can be anywhere from 12, a ferritin of 12 to, I think for women is at 150. It's a huge range. And so when they see it in there, not all, I mean, I think we're getting more awareness. There's been, they'll be like, it's normal. Like, and I've had women, because I wrote a huge article a few years ago about it, about my experience. Um, and they'll like, my doctor, I had a ferritin of 13, and I was just told that was normal. So what the research shows, what 30 or less is a lot of organizations are now adopting if you have a ferritin 30 or less. But
Mhm.
if you look at the research, there's what is Dr. Soppy? He has a few articles, and he writes about if you have the symptoms of iron deficiency and you have a ferritin of at least 100 or less, it could be iron.
Mhm.
So you want to ask for like a full iron panel, and then you can see how much you're absorbing. You can, because you might have some inflammation and don't know it, because ferritin goes up with inflammation. So, you really want to go by symptoms. If you're tired, your sleep isn't good, you know, and especially if you're menstruating and, like have heavy periods. I mean, something like 90 something percent have iron deficiency. So, but from my research, just in general, 50 is really a cutoff. A ferritin of 50 or less can increase fatigue. That's the point where they did one study. Hepcidin is used to increase the absorption. And
Mm.
so 50, once you get to 50, hepcidin increases more so that, because your body absorbs more if you need more. So I think
Mhm.
50 is kind of a telltale, but I think if you really are not getting anywhere and your iron, your ferritin's above 50 but still under 100, you know, you want to get a full iron panel and really, push on that, you know.
Mhm.
And now that I'm older, I get one I ask for a full iron panel just to make sure that I'm absorbing it, because ferritin's just less. It also goes up with inflammation, so it's less reliable when you get older.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm. And your
so
doctors have been receptive to that, and your insurance company has covered it?
yeah, they pretty much cover that, but I get some labs on my own. I go
Yeah,
through in California,
you can.
you can order labs, but you can go through like Inside Tracker. There's a lot of different companies. They don't track everything, but some of these companies you can, get labs done, and they'll give you suggestions on what to do if you're low. Um, but yeah, I have a biomarker guide, and I think there's a lot with just these labs you get in a physical, even if they don't order more, that you can
Mhm.
kind of look at and then go back and be like, yeah, I think I want this test, um,
Mhm.
especially with iron, because it's really overlooked. Um,
Yeah, wow.
yeah,
That was the unintentional theme of today is the iron.
I know. Don't get
Yeah,
me started on iron.
I know, I know. Well, it's so important. I think that's really good to know. I mean, even me as a dietitian, I didn't realize that up to 90% of menstruating women with heavy periods could be experiencing this, and like you're allowed to or encouraged to know only so much, and then once it challenges the status quo and makes a problem for the doctor or the pharmacist, you're supposed to back off. So I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's
mine yeah, like,
but we
I was
can't.
yeah. I had a heavy periods. Mine I was, running, and my one of my labs was high. It's called RDW, and
Okay.
when
Yeah.
it goes high, that's another sign. And, like, I really wish I didn't just write that off. And once, they diagnosed me with mild anemia, she's like, "Just take a multivitamin with iron." I was, like, out of there, and, like, I just started researching and never stopped. And I got my levels up super fast, um, through supplementing, and, if I would have listened to her and taken multi, which does not really absorb that well in a multi, there's not that much iron in a multi, like,
Mhm.
and it was mild, but my ferritin was 10, like,
Mhm.
was, like, pretty much depleted. And I never had a ferritin in any of my, yeah, tests. I keep these files, like, back in the '90s, when I would go, and so
Mhm.
I was just really curious, what was my ferritin then? And so with my daughter, it's like, I'm getting her ferritin, and that's especially when you're younger, it's a really good indicator, and hers was really good, so I was like, "Okay." And that's what I
Mhm.
mean, I wouldn't just give her iron when her ferritin was, like, 94 or something, and,
Mhm.
so we're all so different, and, like, I think that's before you just start supplementing, just check your levels, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what's missing, because everyone's so quick to take, supplements, and if you don't need it, don't take it. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And iron's one you
Absolutely.
don't wanna take if you don't need, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. This is really helpful. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to kind of share with everybody before we wrap up?
Um, I'm gonna be running a lower your cholesterol. Not I just recently wrote about cholesterol and kinda what it means, and because there's all these debates, right? And, based on studies that show which foods kinda help lower it. So if
Mhm.
you're interested in that,
Wonderful.
be coming out, I think, next week, but I don't wanna promise.
Mhm.
Because sometimes, things take longer than I plan, and I make these promises.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then my book is definitely, what to expect when you're in midlife, explaining both biological aging, hormonal changes, how that, affects your body. And I think we're empowered with this information. It's not fear, because this is a time to do something. The body's resilient. It takes many years so if something just starts looking funny, you have plenty of time to do something about it. And so I think I don't like to scare. That's not what I'm about. But I think knowledge is power. And, I love researching this area and helping women. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and whatever problem someone's facing, they can probably do something about it.
yeah. And, that might be taking a medication, but if you want to feel
Yeah.
good about your decision, right? Like that you've kind of looked at everything. Oh, I have this genetic, some people make a lot of cholesterol genetically.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't think I'm not at all like, this is good, this is bad.
Right, exactly. Individualized is what
I
really
hate when people
matters.
like, "Oh, all drugs are bad." It's like, okay,
Right.
the natural way or vice versa. So,
No, it's really just critical thinking
yeah.
and not letting something that has disempowered you or just not giving into that, right? Like I keep using that, but I think like that's my I don't know if it's like my hang up, my thing, like that's the biggest problem I have with someone asked me at an event yesterday, what's the hardest part about your job as a dietitian? And I said, the systems that we live in, right? Like the way that we're treated in healthcare, the way that we're treated, like the food system, like let's just say those. Do not set people up to feel their best. You're not supposed to ask questions. You're not, we're not really promoting critical thinking in schools. And so we've got these generations deep kind of situations where we're not thinking in a way to be preventative, and it's not anyone's fault. I think that's the key thing. It's like the same thing with doctors. It's not one doctor's fault that we are overprescribing things or not explaining things. It's like the empowerment piece is what I'm just trying to bring to everyone,
Yeah,
I
and
guess. Like it
yeah.
makes all the difference.
Mhm. Yeah, these systems are built and there's, like, cracks. I don't
Yeah.
when people say, "Oh, it's all about money," I don't like, I think that can be a part of it, but I think it's
Mhm.
just the way things were developed, and now we've changed, and it's hard to the status quo is really hard to, once a certain way of thinking is it's hard to change
I
it.
know. Yeah.
Uh, and it's just so important to keep up with the research, but I'm not sure a lot of practitioners do,
I
you
don't
know.
think they have time, right?
Yeah.
It's not a value.
Yeah.
It's not prioritized. Like we all have to meet continuing education requirements every year, but like, you
Yeah,
know,
that's just doing it to get it done. Yeah.
right, right. And that's because everybody's overworked because then, yeah. Anyways, I thought of one more thing I wanted to ask you about real quick, and
Mhm.
then we'll wrap up. What do you think about the new food guide pyramid?
You know what? I have that on my list. I haven't dug into it. I've just kind of read
Yeah.
different about it. Um, so I do plan to write about that. Do you have any thoughts?
I try to approach everything with an open mind, and I think it's moving in the right direction. Like I have always taken a little bit more of a conservative stance on some of the additives like artificial sweeteners and
Mhm.
food dye. Like I don't think we need to dietitians are so quick to put kid gloves on everybody. Uh there is zero benefit to consuming food dye.
Mhm.
Why is it in our food?
Mhm.
Let's get rid of it. Let's be a little bit more pragmatic here. So in terms of eat whole food, remove ultra processed food as much as possible, prioritize protein and produce and fiber. Like, I mean, the previous one had crackers as the biggest, and
Mhm.
the quality of our crackers has changed too, right? And like that's being nitpicky, but like there are a lot of components of it that I agree with, and I think there are systems that are keeping our recommendations at the lowest common denominator, and I'm really tired of that. So, for that reason, I think there's a lot of good involved.
Yeah.
And
Um,
just because it's there, we need to stop letting people normalize it.
mhm.
Like, why does Coca Cola exist?
Mhm.
We're normalizing it so people who are addicted to it don't feel bad. That doesn't mean we should be normalizing it. I'm not going to treat someone differently because they drink Coca Cola. But there's absolutely no reason to be consuming that much artificial sweetener every day for 40 years.
Yeah.
It's the risk versus reward. What's the benefit? And if we don't think about it all the way back to the root system level of why does Coca-Cola exist and why have they manufactured and processed to become more addictive and exploited addictive principles, like again, things have just changed. When Coca-Cola came out, it was like these little bottles, and it was you're busy moving all day, working with your body, being out in the sun, drinking a little bit of Coca-Cola. Now it's like this, and we're
Mhm.
sitting at our desk all day, and we're inside. I don't know. I mean, I guess I have a longer answer for this than I even thought. I don't. I
Yeah, you
haven't
should
talked a
post
lot
about
about it on any of my
it.
platforms yet because I think a
I need
lot
to
of
I need to take time to look at that, so that's why I just been working on
yeah
other um
yeah
I know that it's, like, gonna pass, like, when these things come out, you kinda gotta so that's a good
It's
reminder.
gonna stay relevant for a really long time. I think a lot of very traditional dietitians are still, like, too worried about kid gloves because we're still overcorrecting from '90s heroin chic and fat phobia, and we came to health at every size, and now GLP-1s are bringing us back, and we're just, like, we're so concerned about making anybody feel bad about anything, which is fine, but then we're, like, losing touch with reality a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't care if the research says artificial sweeteners aren't going to hurt us. We know they're affecting our gut. What is the benefit?
Mhm.
Pleasure. Okay, great.
I
Have
know,
it
well,
once in a
sometimes
while
you see
for
that in,
pleasure.
in a supplement, it's like, "There's food dye in here? Why on earth? Who cares what the color the supplement
I
is, right?
know.
It's
I
not
know.
adding any flavor or anything."
I
Um,
know.
so yeah, wow, that's in they're just using it, right? I mean, they'll
Mhm.
figure out a way not to use it, so
They need
yeah,
to, and that's the thing. So I don't know. Anyway, but
yeah,
okay,
it's interesting. Yeah, well, I
it's very
gotta go.
interesting.
My
Let me
phone's gonna
ask
run
you.
out.
Okay, let me ask you my final question. What do you want to be doing when you're 80?
Um, I wanna be enjoying my family. I wanna be active. I wanna be playing tennis still. I play with some women I think that might actually be in their 80s. Um,
Amazing.
I wanna be writing about whatever is important to me at the time or working on change by then, I know enough to know I don't know what that's going to look like with my work.
Mhm,
But I want to be very, involved in life. Mm,
mhm.
yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Where can everybody find you? And then please send me anything you want me to link in the show notes.
Yeah, Midlife Strong Substack. Uh,
Okay.
post every week, and yeah,
And we can get your biomarker sheet there as a paid subscriber or a regular subscriber?
just right. Yeah, if you
Regular.
either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Marianne, thank you so much.
Thanks,
I will
Emily.
talk to you later, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.